This is The Franchise. As always, it's Nevin Brown, and I'm joined by...
James, don't call me Mike Piercy, because I don't have a mic.
Oh, I was going to say, it's like, people calling you Mike? I mean, hey, standard, if you see a white guy and you don't know their name, saying a Mike, I mean, actually, if you see any ethnicity person.
Yeah, any guy, yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Mike is a hot one.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie. It's never fading out of style. This is a Houston Rockets basketball podcast, as you can tell from our introductory banter. It's been a little bit. We had the All-Star break. We had plenty of things going on, but we are back and suiting up for the stretch run as the Houston Rockets look to hold off. I will say much stiffer competition from the bottom than I expected. Part of that is teams made moves at the deadline, which the Rockets didn't. We covered that. We both were fine with that decision. If you want to find out why, you can go listen to that podcast. Check it out in our catalog, and you can also like and subscribe right now. Boom. I did all of my my production duties.
3 birds with 1 stone, I think.
Baby, dude, we can just end the pod right now.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyways, but we're going to we have some topics, and we're going to talk about some interesting data nuggets that we've seen from the Rockets over on the season, whether or not they can potentially improve it. What does it tell us about the team structurally, perhaps how it's going to relate to them playing in the playoffs and down the line. But these are big, these are big macro questions about the Rockets, not micro questions, because I know people do like single game commentary.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, like the other team hit shots and we didn't hit. Yeah. We did hit shots. We won. It's single game analysis. I feel like is like, I know people like it, but I feel like it's more of a therapy session than it is actual analysis.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you feel about what you just saw?
Maybe like you could point to broader trends that were illustrated within a single game, but then it's like, well, then you're just talking about broader trends anyway. You know what I mean? So
exactly. But we're not here to, talk about the general industry. We're here to talk about deflections, or at least start out with deflections. So I don't know if you know this, but I like numbers, and sometimes I go on NBA.com and I sift through all of the great tracking data they have. And one thing that they track are hustle stats, and deflections are one of them. And so I just kind of wanted to take a look at where the Rockets ranked and where other teams were. And I just noticed, because I look at this stuff way too often, I was like, oh man, deflections, unsurprisingly, seem like they correlate to team turnover percentage. And what do you know? There's a very strong linear correlation. It's a 0.84 or something for deflections to turnover percentage, which if I did like steals per game or turnovers per game, it's probably be slightly higher. But the Rockets, I was kind of surprised, actually didn't rank as high as I was expecting, and their turnover percentage wasn't as high as I was expecting, because I knew they'd been quite good, and that's because they actually had a downtick in the month of the month of February, excuse me. They had a downtick in opponent turnovers, and that was when they had, they really struggled that month. December, where they were closer to 500, also lower number of deflections, lower number of opponent turnovers. And so I said, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire. James, this number I did this just for 3 months or 4 months out of the season, November through February, because October has 5 games, March 1 game. Don't want to do that. But the linear correlation between opponent turnovers and deflections for the Rockets comes in at 0.964. I mean, it's one team and it's super small sample, so like whatever, but what we know about the number before, it goes, oh, so deflections lead to turnovers. Did you know that?
Which it makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't just me talking about some numbers. I think this is an interesting thing to talk about as looking at as a proxy stat for a few things, is that I think them getting deflections is a very good indicator about how the team is going to play. I think first, getting those turnovers is good for your defense. Big brain stats right there. Turnovers are good for your defense. But I also think
offense as well.
Yes, that's the other thing. I think it's really good for their offense because the Rockets, as we'll get into later in the episode, their offense is not very good and they really struggle to generate efficient offense. Getting turnovers, getting out in transition, getting fast break points are like very crucial to like keeping their offense afloat. And so I think when they can't get deflections, and therefore can't get turnovers, especially the good type of turnovers, those live ball turnovers, I think it really can really hamper their ability to win basketball games.
Yeah. So I have an explanation as to why I think there's been a downtick, or at least, well, I think it's probably the primary explanatory factor, maybe not necessarily the exclusive one. It's really, I think, Bari's absence, which may sound counterintuitive because Bari doesn't really generate a lot of turnovers, right? That's not really his brand. But wait, I think that...
Or does he?
Does he?
Or does he?
I don't think so.
No, I'm not saying like I'm not saying he personally does.
Okay,
like, maybe not.
Maybe indirectly. Maybe indirectly. Yeah, exactly. Because I think that I think we can agree that Alperen Şengün has improved tremendously on defense, right? But he primarily thriving in a role that has him like higher at the level, and his biggest strength on defense is to me is his quick hands. That is the thing that really saves him on that end, is to where like he can deflect and steal and trap, which maybe comes more down to foot speed, but like he's good at positioning, you know, he's got a good awareness, and so like he's pretty good in that role, right? But because he's higher at the level, it leaves the rim open, generally speaking, and unprotected, right? With Bari on the floor, it's far less of an issue because he's a great like recovery protector. Like he can just get back there and at least get a 6'11" body, you know, in the paint to deter a shot. And that dynamic, I think, allows Amen Thompson to really freelance and get the deflections. And that's where it's missing, because I think that Amen's been trying to cover Bari's role, and he's been trying to cover Fred VanVleet's role to an extent too, because he's at the point of attack, right? Yeah, so there's no room for that chaos creation that really is what Amen like does best, and what the Rockets want him doing. There's just too much. It's superfluous compared to like defending the point of attack and protecting the rim. So his responsibilities are now elsewhere.
Yeah, it's kind of why guys like Dylan Brooks like never grades out well in like defensive box plus minus, because like it's BPM, box plus minus, box score. The box is like they're using the stats that they have available, and if you're like the primary on-ball defender of like good players, you're just like not going to get as many stats, because steals and blocks generally come from basically help defense in general, right? Like sometimes you can get some, but like for the most part, that's where they come from. And the Rockets' two most impactful off-ball defenders have been Amen Thompson this year and Tari Eason. And I think, as you pointed out, it's like with VanVleet out and Jabari out, you're asking those two guys to do more on-ball defense, which means, you know, like they're going to get fewer steals, like, because of course they would get fewer steals. They would force fewer turnovers. And yeah, like it is interesting though, how, you know, they were still able to force turnovers and get deflections even when Tari was out. So it's clear that there's like a certain threshold, and like, at least this is like kind of one of the things that I think is possible, is that the Rockets have a certain threshold of who they need available.
Yeah.
In terms of them being able to play defense the way they want. And I think they like Jabari's defense has been like a mixed bag for some people. I don't really know how to classify it outside of he's good at defense, but like he is not spectacular at defense, which is fine. He's a guy who can go do a job, an important job, well enough that guys who are really good at other things can really shine. Dylan Brooks is
Yeah.
kind of in a similar vein. I think Fred VanVleet is also in a similar vein. Like those guys actually, to me, form how should I describe it? They form the base of their defense, while like Tari and Eamon and Şengün to a lesser degree kind of give them that ceiling with their ability to make plays. But as soon as you don't have that base, that consistency on a possession to possession basis of preventing guys from getting into advantageous situations, it can kind of melt down. And so I do wonder if not only did they have the issue of they didn't have the guys there, they started to have that decline right in the middle of the season. And I do wonder if there's a little bit of a fatigue factor.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I like your analogy there. I'll extend it a little bit. It's like Barry, Fred, and Brooks are the cake, and Aman and Tari are the icing, right? They're the again, the basis of it. And then it's like this nice little extra thing that Aman Thompson and Tari Easton can't just be running around trying to steal the ball if nobody's there to like defend guys and protect the rim. And so it's, it's kind of ties back to the same thing. Another thing I would say is even more broadly, like even beyond the defense or any one specific area, the Rockets are really, and we touched on this, I think, last episode, they're really like a house of cards, because they're a depth heavy team and sometimes you, sometimes me, always us team. It's like they can't really afford to lose any of their top 7 or 8 rotation players, or else there's a massive slippage, right? Whereas the way that most teams are structured is, and it's not even a pro or a con, it's just a different things,
I mean, the talent that's available to you is the talent that's available to you.
Yeah, exactly. But like you take the Nuggets, there's really only one player who like it really matters if he's there or not, right? Like to be honest, yeah, like it's Russell Westbrook. No, sorry,
dude.
Pretty crazy.
Well, what's crazy is I've been wanting to write about this and investigate it. I have a theory that Russell Westbrook's actually been dog shit for the Nuggets. It's just that Jokic can make him look like he's good.
Yeah, probably.
So it's like, is Russell Westbrook? I think what I wanted to title was like, is Russell Westbrook helping the Nuggets, or are the Nuggets helping Russell Westbrook? Because that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, but so it's like with them, they got this one guy, and if he's out, they're fucked, and if he's in, they more or less have a chance as long as they have NBA players that can shoot around him, right? The Rockets, there's no one guy that if we lose him, we're completely like screwed, like can't win a game. But there are a bunch of guys that like we really need to do what we're trying to do, and so it makes us in some ways more susceptible to injury, and it's just the injury bug is hitting hard at right now, man. I don't know if you saw, but tonight, like, Amen's questionable, Adams is questionable, Tari's questionable, Fred is out. Like, it's probably going to be a rough night.
Yeah, so we're recording this on Monday.
Yeah,
at like 12:20 Eastern, so that's 1:50, Viking time, and they play the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. Look, I'm not a big fan of like just throw the game. But I am saying they should just throw the game because you have this many guys that are feeling sore. You kind of have like a pretty brutal schedule coming up where like I think there's multiple back-to-backs. It's pretty condensed. You're playing the Thunder. You could be at full strength and probably not win that game. You could be at full strength and play well and probably not win that game. And you're not going to be at full strength. So just give the guys the night off. Lose by whatever you want to lose by. It doesn't matter. Net rating is a made-up stat. Wins and losses, those are real, folks. Those are manalytics, not analytics. So just throw the fucking game. Throw the game, rest everyone up. Why the fuck not? I know. I feel
like they won't take that approach, but like definitely, there's merit.
There's
definitely merit in it. Yeah, they probably should.
Dude, these gambling companies move the line so quickly. They're not even fucking them over by rest these guys. And like I have to admit. It's not like the Rockets have anyone that's like Steph Curry, where fans will be like, "Oh, I really want to see Alper and Şengün." I'm sure we'll find out like someone flew from Turkey to see Şengün play.
Probably.
But
Thunder fans have a particularly firm hate boner for Şengün anyway because the Thunder traded the rights to draft him, right? And then he ended up being a star player.
Why do they hate Sheng? Why would you hate Şengün then?
Well, they just don't want, and more so, it's just human nature. They don't want him to succeed. They want to feel like their team made the right decision. So they
their team didn't. No. Their team definitely fucking didn't.
They definitely didn't. They made the wrong decision.
They made a bad decision. That's over.
Yeah, but that's you and me. That's our weed fan because we're just. I'm just gonna say it. Too smart to fucking delude ourselves into thinking ridiculous things, right? But most people aren't like that. To be honest, let's say we're geniuses. But
we're not geniuses, which is why it's quite weird. But I guess these people do live in Oklahoma, so they have that going against them. Which we're not here to shit talk Oklahoma. I mean, shots will be. I will fire shots at Oklahoma any day of the week. Come on, bring it on here, folks. I'll take on all of Oklahoma, and I'll take on certain parts of Texas. I will mess with certain parts of Texas.
Often, to our understanding of things.
Yeah, well, so anyways, but back to like the general conversation, instead of a little shit talk foray, which can't avoid here.
That's right.
James is a wrestling fan, and I got a big mouth that gets me in trouble. That's true, historically speaking. So with the deflections, though, I think it's an interesting proxy to look at some of these underlying stats for teams, and I do think that deflections might be a really important one for the Rockets, and it might be one that we should monitor, because I think what was interesting is when I took so in their game against the Kings, they lost that game. The opponent had 14 turnovers, which isn't it's not a great number for the Rockets. In February they averaged 11 opponent turnovers, but before that it was 16 or whatever, around there, 16 to 15. But they had 5 deflections against Sacramento, and I would be very interested to see if Sacramento plays a certain way that it's hard for them to get deflections, and that's why they're 0-3.
Right. Yeah. That seems like a pretty good theory. Well, are the Kings, are they low turnover?
Well, it's going to be hard to... I mean, I could go take a look at that. I don't think they're a high turnover team, because most teams with DeMar DeRozan running a heavy portion of their offense aren't. But they have the issue of they did switch from having... they did make a pretty significant switch on offense, going from De'Aaron Fox to Zach LaVine. And so, the full season numbers won't really be representative of... Yeah,
but even still, they are 7th best in the league at 13.6 turnovers per game. Tied for 7th and 0.1 behind Philly. And given that, I would say that their deadline move probably lowered their turnovers per game, I would say you've got a good hypothesis there. They would be a low turnover team.
But yeah, so I do wonder if that is one of the reasons that they've struggled with Sacramento. Now, I can't say that that's why they've lost both their games to the Brooklyn Nets. Now they have gone 1-3 against the Warriors, who, interestingly enough, are not a high turnover team, even though I wrote something about the Warriors, and this is what I found. Their turnover percentage this season, it's 12.2%. That is the lowest turnover percentage they've had as a team since guess when?
Probably before the dynasty, if I had to guess.
Yes, well before the dynasty. I believe it's 2008-9.
Okay, the We Believe Warriors, I think.
Yeah, basically right around there. Don Nelson was the coach. So interestingly enough, interestingly enough, they're now a low turnover team, and the Rockets have struggled with them. So I wonder, maybe I'll do some data on that and be do they struggle against a certain type of team, turning them over? But then again, it's everything's such a small sample on the who they've played that it could always just be noise.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that could end up increasing the amount of times the Rockets turn the ball over in a good way.
You mean starting Cam Whitmore? Honestly, I haven't seen him for a while.
He's kind of out of the rotation, to be honest.
I mean, now that they got their guys back, that makes sense. He was primarily getting minutes when guys are out. I don't like bagging on the kid. Like, he has games where I'm like, he's helping the team, but then he also, even when he's helping the team, I feel like he's not helping the team. He's helping himself, and sometimes that helps the team.
Let me say this, right? I mean, let me say this. Like, him and Amen and Reed all are in an interesting position where they land on a team once the team wanted to start competing, right? I think that's going to be really good for Amen Thompson. Jury's still out on Reed. I don't even like to say anything about Reed Shepherd, to be honest, but I think that is not beneficial for Cam Whitmore, to be honest. I think he would have actually done better to land on a team that was like, hey, we're hoping to draft, never mind Cooper Flagg, Cam Boozer, like we have a few years for you to play like a dumbass. And if you listen to coach, gradually work that out and improve. Like, that's what he needed, it's not to his benefit to be on a team that's trying to win, because he didn't come in at all ready to win. Whereas Amen kind of did. Like Amen, it's like, hey, I don't know if this guy's like a future primary, but he can do wing stuff at a high NBA level, like right now, so.
Yeah. I mean, the big difference between the two is Amen's good at basketball. And Cam Whitmore is not good at basketball. And I just mean that from the way they think about the game. One guy thinks about the game well, and one guy doesn't, because the amount of times you'll see Whitmore just he gets the ball, he's like, I'm shooting, I got the ball, I'm kind of open, I'm gonna shoot it, and it's like, dog, don't do that. Don't do that. Do something different.
This ties really well into what I want to say about the next topic.
Yes,
I'm kind of itching to get out.
Yeah, but then I also the only thing I'll say about him that I find the most frustrating actually is the amount of times he gambles for steals and comes up empty, and I'm just like, you cannot fucking do that.
That's just keeping him off the floor, I think.
Yeah, as it should. You know how you get steals? You get deflections. You get deflections. You're in the right defensive position. You fucking you cover your fundamentals, and the steals will come from that. Okay, coach talk done. He also don't pass the ball, which is a problem because the Rockets are the worst passing team in basketball. So, James, I know you're itching to talk about this. Do you want to comment before I drop the stat bomb? Actually,
no. You drop the stats, and my comments are
okay, man. So the stats are really bad. So the Rockets are dead last in number of passes made per game, 262. The Mavericks are next at 268. There's not a real correlation, I'm just going to say this, between how many passes you make and offensive success. It's not like, more passes means better offense. A good example would be the Warriors lead the league in passing, a number of passes per game, 331. Their offense has been better of late, but overall, not that great. Then the Pacers are next. Good offense. Then the Suns are next. Okay offense. Then the Bulls. Then the Nets. Then the Raptors, right? So, there's not a real... it's not more passes, more points. It doesn't do that. But
Rockets fans should have learned that lesson from the Harden era when the team was routinely near the bottom in passes per game. But it's just because the usage is so concentrated on one dude. Like, how many passes do you expect James Harden to make every night, right? So that offense was elite in spite of the low passing numbers.
Yes, and I think what's more telling is not only are they not passing the ball, the number of assists they get per game also dead last, 22.6. Secondary assists. They're second to last. Way to go. Utah Jazz only at 2.1, but the Rockets are at 2.3. Potential assists. They're actually not at the bottom. So part of their assist, low assist numbers has to do with shooting, but they're, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth from the bottom in potential assists, right? So the passing isn't there. And then this was a number that I saw that led me down this rabbit hole. Is I was just looking at player stats to see the number, because I was looking at the Rockets player page, and I noticed Alperen Şengün's number of 2-point field goals that were assisted seemed really low to me for a center. So I said, let me go grab all the players that have played real minutes and see where he ranks among centers, which you can do pretty easily. So you know what I found? Şengün, out of all the centers in the sample, which is about, let me do the math, it's about 45, second to last. So the second lowest percentage of his 2-point made field goals are assisted. The guy that's even lower is Jaren Jackson Jr. Right? So like part of me was like, oh, is this like good? And maybe it is good. Like maybe Şengün, like part of the efficiency issue is just the shot. The shot diet is not what it should be for a fucking center, because Jared Jackson Jr. is a center, but he's also a power forward, and he's going to make the All NBA team. And if he doesn't make the All NBA team, then what's the point of having an All NBA team this year?
Yeah.
But so I saw that and I was like, oh wait, like is this just like an issue for the Rockets? And it's like, yes, they're the only team that's in the bottom 5 for the percentage of their field goals that are assisted on 2-pointers and 3-pointers. It generally is like, so that's like just not good. And then you go look at like their position groups. Power forward, I actually don't think they have a qualified power forward, but small forward, very near the bottom. You have Dylan Brooks in terms of 2-point field goals assisted. Amen Thompson near the bottom, 2-point field goal assisted. Guess who's also near the bottom for shooting guards? 2-point field goals assisted. Jalen Green, point guard. Guess who's near the bottom? Fred VanVleet. So this is like a team-wide problem where they're not setting people up to score for success, like through passing. Yeah.
So I stole this stat from you to write an article for this afternoon. Good work. It goes live in a half hour. Maybe it already went up. Anyway,
whoever is listening, it will be up. It will be up. Whoever is listening.
I do think that it is really significant to the story of how the Rockets season has gone. And I have 2 solutions. Call it a 2-state solution as to how the Rockets can solve this problem. That joke didn't even make any sense. You could edit it if you want.
I mean, I'll keep it. I think, look, part of comedy is workshopping. The best comedians aren't the funniest people on the first try. They're just the most annoying person and are willing to say everything and anything to get you laughing and then keep that material for their shows.
Well said. Well said. So first one is Sheng. I can't remember. I don't remember these exact stats. I don't have them in front of me. And it's too much to go look up while we're talking. But the Rockets get more points per possession, or they rank higher in the league in points per possession in post-up sets than they do in pick and roll stats. But they run more pick and rolls than they do post-ups, right? So that's one thing I would be looking to change. Is I would specifically look to get Şengün on the low block more often. That is a more advantageous position to pass from than the short roll, right? Usually the short roll only has an option or two. You're looking at like a corner 3 or maybe a big to big, but even then, like, I mean, it's probably not there. It's a more limited action than getting them in the post. I would, I like the way they run their pick and roll. I'm not saying abandon it, but like it's not really the set that maximizes the roll man's passing ability, right? I would suggest. I would look to get him in the post more often.
Yeah. And also, I was just going to add, like, maybe the short roll would maybe be more effective for passing if the guy running it teams were like, we have to fucking double this guy. Like that's the not ball handler. Yeah, the guy. They're never like, we have to double the ball handler.
No, And
so if that's the case, like, the guys that have really good success passing out the short roll, it's because they get to work with a guy that they're like, we need to double team. So the guy gets it, and it's a 4-on-3, and that's how the passing options open up. Not if it's like a 4-on-4, because then it's kind of clogged and there's guys there, and it's
Yeah, exactly. And so much of this ties into like there are a lot of it's a little bit complicated. Like Ime's lack of offensive ingenuity is a problem. Also, the roster construction is a bit of a problem, but then it's so well constructed defensively that it's a little difficult to get your head around. Like, how do we change this? Yeah, it's a bit tough, right? So that's neither here nor there. But at least I would get him posting up more often.
Yeah.
And on actions where he's in more of like a high post scenario, that leaves some room for a man to cut. And on the low post, just, try to spray it out to like one of the, Dylan can shoot the ball now. I know he's not like one of the best in the league, but he's hitting the shots, and Fred is still a threat, and Barry is a threat. So, and Jalen is a threat, to be honest. Like there is shooting on the team. It's lacking, but you could still post him up in efforts to get the ball to open or semi-open shooters, right? Then the second thing I noticed looking at the stats is that Amen Thompson is fourth on the team in assist percentage and eighth on the team in usage percentage. I would just bump his usage up a little bit. I'm not saying make a man like the full-time point guard, like hand him the keys, but I would just try to get him out to fifth or sixth in the team in usage. Give him some more on-ball reps. Like it kind of feels like a simple problem, simple solution thing. The Rockets don't pass enough. They don't get enough assists. And one of the men's biggest strengths is his passing mission, you know?
Yeah. I mean, those are all, that's like kind of, I think, the frustration, I'm sure, for Rockets fans who are upset with the way the offense looks is like, I don't, neither of us are like pretending to be like, we actually know what they should do, but we're saying what you're doing is not really working in terms of your first shot half court offense. You know, the overall offense is working fine because of fast breaks and offensive rebounds, but those things can be there if you even if you improve your first shot half court.
You can still run a good offense. Yeah, exactly.
Like, I know. Like, you know, and so like the other thing with the post up stuff is like I've said this to you before, but watching if you're a Rockets fan, go watch another team play offense. And then go watch the Rockets play offense. And the thing you will notice is the Rockets offense is slow and stagnant, and there's like not shit going on. They take forever to get into their sets. Once they get into their sets, they don't do anything other than like one action. It's like maybe a pick and roll. It's maybe an ISO. It's maybe a post up. And then by the time they finally get into it, and I think this might be one of the reasons why they pass so little, partially is like by the time they get into it and they're actually like attacking, there's not that much time left on the shot clock.
Yeah.
So it's either they shoot or they kick out and that guy shoots. But if you get in those actions just earlier, like just speed up the process, you do stuff sooner. Maybe that kick out isn't like, hey, there's 5 seconds on the shot clock. This is a relatively open three. I'm going to like, obviously I just need to shoot this, but there's 10 seconds on. You could maybe say, hey, let's pump.
Right.
Let's go. Let's swing it. Like, let's reset. And so like, there's a huge issue when I watch them play where I'm just constantly going, you guys got to do shit so much faster. You need to get the ball up the court faster. You need to start the offensive actions faster. And that would help them a little bit. But then if you just watch them play compared to other teams, guys don't do anything. Like there's always two dudes in the corner just standing there.
Yeah.
It's just like there's nothing else happening on so many plays. And I just do not understand why they're not doing more. And like, that's part of the reason why, like, I don't think they pass enough. Like, I think it's because like people aren't getting open. You can't pass the ball unless someone's getting open. And so there's just so little going on. It's, I don't get it. Like I remember the Celtics offense when Udoka was running it being not as good as their defense. Obviously that defense was amazing. And their offense, I was like that was the concern. That's why they lost the finals to the Warriors. Like that offense just kind of fell apart. And I don't remember if it was exactly like this, but I have a suspicion that if we were to go back and watch it, we'd say this is too stagnant. So if I was Raphael Stone, I would be looking to bring in an offensive coordinator for Udoka because I think the cat's out of the bag on this one where he's an awesome defensive coach. I think he's a good coach overall in terms of the interpersonal relationships, getting people to buy in, the effort stuff. But at this point, it's clear he's running an offense from 2004 practically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little tricky because I agree about an offensive coordinator. That would really be ideal. But it does seem to me that Udoka has, say, disproportionate like organizational control relative to most head coaches. I think that's part of how we managed to convince an above-average NBA coach to come join the worst second or third worst team in the NBA for 3 consecutive seasons. You know, was like, hey, you're going to be like unofficial assistant GM here, and I suspect that he doesn't want an offensive coordinator. I think
what you can't tell me he's watching this shit being like, yeah, let's fuck. Like you can't like come on.
Yeah, here's what I think.
I think
he wants to win, but I think what Ime really wants is to have a superstar or two to where he can just like say, look, guys, you know what to do offensively. Let me teach you these defensive principles and just get out there and cook on the other end. And like that'll give you the 11th best offense in the NBA just because like Tatum and Brown are so good. You know what I mean? Or whoever else. Like that's really what he's looking to do. And then he gets the credit for the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defense. You know, I think, and the Rockets is just that's not the situation. Like Şengün is a really, really good young player. Aman is a really good young player. Jalen is capable of being good at times, but they these aren't guys that like even Şengün is not a guy that's like if you have him, your offense is going to be great. Don't worry about it. Just give him the ball and he'll make stuff happen. It's not that type of team, you know.
I mean, he does make like that's kind of what they do, and like obviously it's not great, and it would be better if they had better shooting around him. But like, yeah, it's true. It's like Şengün isn't a player at this stage where you can just be like, here, go make shit happen. Most guys aren't in their fourth season, right? So it's like, yeah, maybe he develops that into that type of player. But just like, you just watch the way they play compared to the way other teams play, and it's like they're playing a different fucking sport. And they've got to fucking understand that because they're out here playing really good fucking defense, and you can't play really good defense without understanding what the offense is doing and being able to shut it down. It's why I don't understand. It's like if you were a coach and you were like on defense, what is your job? Like, what do you want to do? You're like, we want to slow them down. We want to force them to take as long to get in their actions as possible. Once they start doing that, we want to muck it up as much as possible so they have no spacing, no driving lanes, and they're forced into like an okay to bad shot late in the shot clock. Like that's like the goal of defense. That's like the fucking Rockets base offense. Like that's what they're out there trying to do. I was like, I think that the lack of passing and the lack of assists, there's a lot of factors going into it, but I think overall it is a lack of creativity on offense, which I think is indisputable, and a lack of pace on offense, which I also think is indisputable. And I just think those two things are like, I'm not saying like the Rockets secretly have could have the best offense in the league.
Sure.
But they secretly, with how good they are at getting out in transition and getting offensive rebounds, they secretly maybe have like a real top 10, top 8 offense if they were to play a little bit faster. Like, I mean, I just think even playing a little bit faster would open up some creativity.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. Not quite sure. I mean, this team's so young and athletic, right? It's weird to play this like plotting pace. So much of the offense is centered around the Fred Şengün pick and roll, and I think that's a big mistake. I think that there are more ways you could use Şengün that would leverage the athleticism of Jalen and Aman. You know, I don't think he's a play finisher. I don't think Fred is dynamic enough to be like when we signed Fred, I loved the signing because I felt like, okay, we're not going and getting like our Helio Hub, like primary ball handler. It's more like he's like almost a combo guard. Like he can run off ball actions and stuff too, you know, like he's like a medium usage guy. And if this was the way that we were going to use him, in some respects, man, we might as well have gone out and got James Harden. How much worse would the defense be relative to how much better the offense would be? You know, I'm not sure. Point. Right? That's, you know, it's like if we're just going to bring him in and just spam pick and roll, then maybe we should have went and got like one of the best pick and roll guards in the league instead of Fred. I don't know.
Yeah, and when they don't have, and when he's not on ball, right? Because Jalen gets a lot of opportunities to run the offense. But the thing is, it's like when he's not on the ball, they're not like, hey, Jabari, or Dylan Brooks, you're in the corner. Go up there and set a screen for him. Why? Yeah. I don't know, because the defense has to fucking do something if you do that. Yeah. You know, like, what do you mean why? Just go fucking do it. And those are things where, like, I'm not saying that's going to open up their offense and make it amazing, but it's like good offenses, you just see them teams randomly do that shit because it makes the defense have to react to something. And who knows? Maybe they fuck up. Fred's wide open in the corner and Jalen sees it, or he's passed it to Şengün. Şengün sees it. You get an open corner 3, or they have to scramble and then he passes it back to Jabari on the wing who has an open 3, or it's like something can happen positive. And it's just there's too few questions asked. You got to ask questions. You got to be an investigative journalist on offense of the defense. Be like, can you stop this? And they're like, I think. It's like, are you sure you can stop this?
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's find out.
I will add that two of our points are closely related to me, which is if you put Şengün on the low block more often and taught guys better principles about like off ball movement and stuff, it would certainly be a more dynamic offense. You were hinting at this earlier, but like I think what's frustrating is like, yeah, I'm not an offensive genius. I'm not an NBA coach caliber basketball mind, but that's why it's frustrating that I can see clearly ways to improve this offense, or at least things that would be worth trying, given that the offense has not been very dynamic. You know, like there's clearly a problem here. I would think that there are solutions that seem like low hanging fruit, and they're just not snatching it for some reason. You know,
but I think that's the best way to describe it. Is there is clearly low hanging fruit on how this offense, even with their shooting limitations, could improve. And I think straight up, if you did those things, the shooting would kind of start to improve. Yeah. Right? Like there's like, you can't, like, I think too often people blame, oh, it's like the bad shooting is why everything else doesn't work. I'm like, you know, the Cavaliers have relatively the same roster as they did last season. They changed up their offense. It got better, and everyone's shooting threes better. You can say, oh, well, you know, that's variance, that's luck. Or, I don't know, like the offense made it so there's just more good opportunities for everyone all over the court, and that's how you shoot better.
I think that like it's a fool's errand to try to draw the line between like what is just random variance, and I've talked about this for years. Really, what's variance and what is attributable to things. Like luck is a component of basketball and sport, and that's never going to change. And sometimes your opponent just can't hit a shot, even though you didn't play well. Sometimes you played perfect defense, but they just hit shots all night. But all you can do is I think this is where it's more like that question is more of an eye test thing than a stat thing. Maybe it's like just watch them play. Are they doing the right things? And the shots just happen to not be falling. If so, just keep doing the things. But that's clearly not the case with the Rockets. You know, like they're. It's been a great season. I feel like it's funny we're falling into the same trap of being super critical, even though it's been a great year.
It's been a great year, but we're critical of this one thing. Like, we've been consistently critical of this one thing because I think it's been consistently the one thing that very clearly needs to be addressed and could be addressed with the least amount of effort, right? Like, I think it's kind of insane they're this good. Like, it's incredible that they're this good, and we're like, hey, have you heard of an off-ball screen?
Yeah.
Like straight up. Like, I don't know. I don't have the data on it, but I would be willing to bet they're near the bottom in off-ball screens, and I'm willing to bet that the teams that are near the bottom in off-ball screens have a way, way, way better lead ball handler and pick and roll partner, and that's why they're near the bottom in that.
It's funny, you know, 3 years of Silas, everybody talking about, oh, the Rockets play AAU ball. Here we are, 5th seed in the Western Conference. Rebuild is coming together really nicely. Everything's good. Kind of just play AAU ball with a lot of effort, though. You know, it's just the same. It's like Silas ball. If guys were getting it after it like they were supposed to, it's pretty much what it is.
It's unfortunately kind of true. It's like, you know, you replace. I mean, it was just such a culture shock where you go from Silas to Udoka, Van Vliet from KPJ, and then Dylan Brooks in there instead of Christian Wood or some shit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like, exactly.
It's just like the level of the amount of dudes who are just going to hold you accountable for stuff just went from 0 to 100, and it's paid off. And like, I think, like, you know, the Rockets have been one of the success stories of this season. I know the Pistons are getting a lot of press because they've been on a good run, but they also, you know, like they basically did what the Rockets did last season, except they get to play in the Eastern Conference, which gives you a pretty incredible wins boost just based upon your schedule alone. But like, you know, you add guys to the team that know how to play ball, you add a coach that holds people accountable, and you can make your young players look way better. And I think the only thing the Rockets need to do to make their young players look better is have an offensive system that makes sense in the modern game. Like, it's just it just doesn't look like a modern NBA offense. And that is if they don't do as well down the stretch, I think it's going to be why. Because like we didn't even talk about this. Teams, like one of the reasons why I think they've been struggling a bit more recently is teams have just been throwing a zone at them. And my God, it's like they put like, Dikembe Mutombo, Rudy Gobert, and, like Nate McMillan and Gary Payton and
Nate McMillan. Nice.
I'm Paul George out on the floor all together. And because like, it's just like they throw a zone at them. There's like, what do we do? I guess not score.
Yeah. Oh, man. What do you think, man? Might be time to send it home, I think.
I think it is. Okay, so the Rockets are going to play tonight and play the Thunder. I guess they have injury issues. I'm expecting them to lose, and I'm hoping they lose because they bench all their guys. Just give them the rest that they deserve. They've earned this. But after that, they gotta
win games.
They gotta win games because the Warriors are coming. The Lakers have came. They came. They saw. They conquered the 2 seed out of fucking nowhere. Denver isn't going to slow down. Memphis isn't going to slow down. This Western Conference seeding is going to be all gas, no brakes. Yep. And the Rockets right now are the only one showing like their tank might be saying they need to pull over. And so maybe tonight against OKC, that would be the good way to go. Do you want to plug anything that you haven't already plugged?
No. Well, because I already plugged what I want to plug, which is 2 troubling stats, highlight area of improvement for Rockets. It's basically just about how they are dead last in 2-point assist percentage and 26th in 3-point, and they could change that by doing the things I said on this podcast. So if you want to read what I said, go check it out.
You gotta learn that that's not how you sell people on going. If you want to read the
I'm not good at sales, I'm bad at sales. Undeniable.
If people are like, excuse me,
I
only read if
I basically was like, don't read it.
Yeah. Okay. No, but definitely go check it out. Also, I'm sure you have other stuff in the works by the time this podcast goes up. Check out my Substack, Above the Break. This Portuguese guy who writes all of his stuff in Portuguese keeps putting me in his newsletter, and I'm just like, I don't write in Portuguese, but like, I guess I'm like actually reading some of it. I'm like, oh, I can kind of, if I was stranded in Portugal or Spain, I could maybe not die if I could just read everything. Okay. I know just enough of the vocabulary that I'm like, I think I know what's happening here. There's cognates are happening.
You're cognating.
I'm cognating. All right. We promise this time we'll try to be back on the once a week grind. Things, stuff happens, all-star breaks happens. And as James and I discussed before we recorded this, the Rockets have been consistently boring in who they are as a team.
Value.
And they haven't added anyone. So, feel free to comment if you want us to talk about anything. Or if you want us to do more shit talking of other cities or
I like that solicitation.
Yeah,
That's why you're the professional.
That's why I just saw Lenora. Because I like those solicitations. Anyways, we'll be back in like a week, and peace.
Peace.